Right then, quite the drama around Real Madrid over the last couple of weeks. According to reports in Spain, there's been a lot of infighting. Valverde against Tchouaméni. Apparently players nearly...
Do you want me to read this?
No, I can read it. Why?
Well, you want to stay away from this, can you?
Players nearly came to blows during Wednesday's training session. Carreras and Rudiger. Carreras confirmed there was an incident with a teammate that included Rudiger slapping Carreras. This was back in April. Kylian Mbappe, of course. Lots of talk about him. He's been involved in a flare-up with an assistant coach during a training exercise. He took that trip, of course, to Italy this weekend while recovering from a hamstring injury. Jurgen, when we've spoken about players and infighting before, you said, I'm going to take them all for a nice cup of tea and we'll have a chat about it. That's a lot of tea at the moment to keep all these players happy. As a new manager coming in, of course, it won't be Arbeloa, but whoever takes the reins, how do you deal with all of this turmoil that seems to be going on internally?
Well, it shows you a bit the masterwork of Carlo Ancelotti, over the years at Real Madrid. How he was able to deal with these big egos and big names and big players. Because it's really difficult because they all have their own agendas and they all they have their ambitions and all have different things on the side besides just playing football. It is really important as a manager to have them kind of with you, to have them positive towards you because they can make you or break you. And that's obviously in a locker room like Real Madrid or any of the big teams in Europe. It's tough. It's difficult. And I think PSG is the fantastic example, to go a different direction and to get rid of the big names and just build a team with very, very good, fantastic players, but not superstars right away. And look where they are right now. And these things, I mean, I went through them at Bayern Munich as a player too. Yeah. I was involved in arguments every single day. And they're not pleasant. They're not pleasant. And you got to figure out a way, to get through these periods. So maybe Mbappe said, I'd rather go for a couple of days to Italy and eat some pasta, and have some cappuccino instead of fighting, in the locker room at Real Madrid. But it happens. Absolutely, it happens, and it's nothing new. But you got to figure out a way as a club, meaning also there the management with your coach and whoever will be the coach there in the future time now after this season, to get that under control. Otherwise, you're not going anywhere.
It's amazing when things are not going as well as a club would like, how the sort of blame game starts to fester within the dressing room.
Right. People you start looking after yourself.
Well, you start looking at people who you think are making mistakes, or not necessarily making mistakes, because everybody makes mistakes. But maybe you look at somebody who's maybe not training properly, or pulling their weight in games, or working hard enough, or whatever it is, or maybe speaking to the media about things they shouldn't be, and things start to fester. I mean, Fede Valverde taking on Tchouaméni, that's a bit of a fair play to Valverde. That's a bit of a mismatch there. Tchouaméni, some big lads in that dressing room, but you very rarely, not never, but very rarely hear of a team that's successful win a scrap. I mean, it does.
What the heck was that?
What's going on? I don't know if you can hear that at home.
I don't know. It's not coming from me. I don't have a dog in my room. I don't know. Maybe Jürgen. I don't know.
Somebody opening a creepy door.
Was that you?
No, dogs are outside. Today the dogs are outside.
We've had the weirdest noises in 35 minutes of TV. But it's not a surprise, is it, Stevie, that this Real Madrid side?
No.
We've been listening to these noises all day with him. It's not
Stevie,
a surprise.
The problem is you've got such big characters there, and I suppose in theory you could say, well, get rid of a couple of them, get back to basics, but you can't. You're not getting rid of Vinny or Mbappe.
No, that's why the next manager is important. That's why you need somebody like Ancelotti. Every club has people falling out, right?
Yeah.
But it's the important thing is why. And it seems that Real Madrid, it is the blame game. Individuals sometimes don't get on, sometimes you catch somebody in training, but when it comes down to the players pointing the finger at each other, that's because of the manager. Because the manager's the guy that steers the ship, and he has to get everybody going in the same direction. And the problem Real Madrid have is they have two players in particular, at least two, who want to go their own way. And so that just causes trouble with everybody. Because now, when things are going badly, you've got players like Freddie Valverde going, hold on a second, I am doing everything I'm told, I'm running my guts out for this team, I'm doing everything, but we've got players who are not doing that. That's when everything starts to go haywire. Then every single little thing becomes an argument, or it gets worse and it ends up with a fight. That's why it's huge that you get the right manager. Because if they don't get the right manager, if they don't get a guy who's going to make Vinny and Mbappe and Bellingham toe the line, then just look forward to another season of what you've got.
And you got to have a dressing room that's when this kind of thing does happen, you get over it.
Right.
Yep.
You know, I'm not suggesting there's a fight, but quite often things get a little heated, and you got to make sure that it's sort of done and dusted, and the next day you're back at it. Whereas you get the feeling here, you go into that Real Madrid training ground on a Monday or a Tuesday, he's not talking to him, and he's not talking to him, and you know what I'm saying? And that's when it becomes a real mess, because, you know, these altercations do happen when players get frustrated or somebody gives somebody one in training or whatever it is. But most of the good squads, certainly the teams that I've played in, if there's been something like that, do you know what? By the end of the day, and certainly by the next morning, it's done and dusted.
Right.
And they might not be best of mates, but you just move on. Whereas this dressing room, you feel some of them don't want to let it to move on, don't want to let it move on. And that's why, and Jurgen mentioned Ancelotti, even Ancelotti in his brilliance in the last year was just going, I can't figure this out.
Yeah.
You know, it was so difficult even for him, who has been arguably the master man manager of the current era.
Go on, Frank.
The thing is, which for me is the most insane thing, is I see the blueprint of what I saw with Paris Saint-Germain 2 years ago, when they had to get rid of the stars in order to get a team. And Florentino Perez is guilty for that. He's the one who has to put down the hierarchy that every club needs. And he has to step back from the dressing room, stay in his office, lock the door, and I don't want to see any player complaining. It's what happened with Nasser El Khelaifi. He's a friend of mine, and we talked about that. And as soon as he decided to cut off all relationship with the players and put one boss, one captain in the ship, Luis Enrique, it worked. It worked. They have the recipe how it can be working with Paris Saint-Germain. That's the best recipe that they've done. Just copy it. But as you said, it's going to be hard because you can't get rid of Vinicius Junior. You can't get rid of Kylian Mbappe or Jude Bellingham. You have to deal with that. But put one boss in the dressing room, and the boss decides for everything, and you don't overturn his decisions. Otherwise, you're screwed. And it's what's happening right now for Real Madrid for me.
Which seems simple, Jurgen, but say you're appointed at Real Madrid tomorrow, you know all the pressure and everything that comes with it from above.
Yeah, but the key in this whole discussion is always, obviously, the relationship that the manager has with his players. For sure, it's a very, very important piece of the puzzle. But the most important piece is the manager backed by the owner, by the CEO, by the big boss, by Perez? That is the key question. And if the players know that, you know, the manager right now, in this moment, has not the 1,000% backing of the president, of the owner, then they start playing games with him and with the manager. And there's so many people that have access to the owner, to, you know, these people that run the club. You know, that in that moment, you as a manager, you know, you're just the last piece, you know, at the end of the chain, and that makes it almost impossible then to go into the face of big name players and tell them what to do, and tell them to run back, and tell them to high pressure, and tell them to give their best in every training session, you know, because you have the feeling that, okay, but my bosses, they don't really back me. And this is maybe the situation there that they have to figure out.
Jürgen, good man, thank you very much. Of course, so many of these subplots going in to El Clasico this weekend. Of course, a game you can see live on ESPN and ESPN Plus. Our coverage starts at 2:30 Eastern. If you're on the West Coast, don't miss the El Clasico fan experience, an unforgettable El Clasico watch party and live concert by Esteban Armado, featuring appearances by La Liga legends Carlos Puyol and Eden Hazard. That's May the 10th at the Torch. Just click on the old QR code